Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hi everyone, and welcome to the fifth episode of Missosology's Beauty Talks. And today we have a very special guest who is the reigning Mr. World, Mr. Jack Heslewood. Did I pronounce it right?
You did? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you for having me. You pronounced it right.
And we were joined by former Missosology correspondent Stephen Dia.
Again, thank you very much for inviting me.
Yeah.
It's
And
always a pleasure.
first of all, thank you, Jack, for doing this interview with us.
Thank you very much, guys. I'm excited to speak with you and to the audience. I understand that obviously there's quite a big Philippine following, so
Yeah.
mabuhay.
Yeah. Jack is quite famous here among pageant fans in the Philippines.
He did quite get a lot of followings, after the Mr.
Yeah.
World competition, right?
From the Philippines.
Yes.
The
First of all,
Go, Drew.
we would like to know how are you doing now that we are all in this quarantine pandemic and all that.
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I mean, it's week 9, and I've been isolating longer than we actually needed to in England because my family and I decided that we would be safe than sorry and isolate a bit earlier. So, but we're doing okay. We're doing good. I think we're actually ahead of the curve in England, but we were hit really hard by it. So we just need to make sure we stay home really at the moment.
So here, Jack actually is from Hertfordshire, which is in the north of London.
Yes.
Population more than 1 million, is it right?
There is, yeah. I think I wouldn't know the population, but it's Hertfordshire, yeah,
Hertford.
just outside London.
It's how you correctly pronounce it, Hertfordshire.
Yeah, Hertfordshire, yeah.
Hertfordshire.
Yeah.
So you've been there for longer than it should have been, and no way to commute to London, or could you possibly just move freely, unlike other places?
I mean, you could get to London still,
Mm-hmm.
but the public transport is vastly reduced. So you wouldn't want to, even if you could.
Yeah,
I mean,
you don't want to dare ride the public transport or the tube, right?
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't want to dare, or you wouldn't really want to take the public transport anyway, because it's reduced service and there's probably one every 3 hours.
Oh.
You wouldn't want to do that. Yeah, so it's been quite a struggle for people to get to work because our Prime Minister requested that everybody only go into work if it's absolutely necessary. So they have to work from home, but if they can't work from home, then there aren't really many options how you can get to work. So if you live near enough to actually walk or run there, then you're lucky. But most people living in London, or working in London, they live outside of London.
Yeah.
So yeah, not really much of an
So
option.
how are you keeping busy every day?
I'm doing as much as I can from my own home. What I've been doing is I've started a YouTube series with the Mr. World and Miss World contestants from last year, and I'm interviewing them and having them talk about what they are doing after Mr. World and after Miss World, and some of it's just like kind of light, funny, entertainment kind of chat, and some of it's actually more exploratory, talking about what's happening in their country. For example, I had Miss and Mr. India to talk about what was happening because there's limited news, right? I mean, I know what's happening in the Philippines because I speak to folks from the Philippines and get updates that way. But if you watch the news, there's very limited news about it. So this is kind of like a way for me to try and push out some news to the world and also kind of have fun at the same time. But it's as much as I can do in the comfort of my own home because, I can't go out and just take a flight somewhere and help, a community in Nepal. I can only do it from my home.
But I've known you basically as a rocket scientist and mathematician as well. Math was my favorite subject long time ago.
Okay.
Calculus was my forte back in the old days, but now
Okay.
so
your partial derivatives and,
the derivatives, yes.
and yeah, love it.
Are you doing some tutorials or not, or helping some
I
kids?
did. Yeah, I had an idea that I would actually do this. So I would make some tutorials on how to understand the 4 forces of the universe. So the strong and weak nuclear forces, obviously then gravity, but I also wanted to kind of put it in a way that was like a quick way of learning what those 4 forces are. So you've obviously got like radiation, gravity, and the 2 nuclear forces. So I thought it would be like a fun, but making it kind of fun at the same time, not just like get your textbooks out and we're gonna write this, these formulas out. It was going to be something quite fun,
It is really very interesting because from where I'm from where we're from, Drew and I were from, usually
Yeah.
when you are the studious types and you have those inclination with mathematics, with physics, and things that are probably majority of the Filipinos are really not so good at, or not I'm saying that they're not so good at, but something that are not really interesting from among my friends. Even like when you talk about physics, no, like calculus, no, like, but you actually, you're one guy who became Mr. World, like, I'm sorry, you became Mr. World, but at the same time you were actually like really a genius, that if we would call it like that.
I think it's quite I think I like to be different to a stereotype. I wouldn't say that any of the previous winners are stereotypes at all. Everyone is so different. There's no formula for a winner, right? You guys will know there's no formula, but I know that when I speak to folks back home, or anyone who doesn't really know too much about what the Miss World and Mr. World competitions are like, they do sometimes stereotype you. So when I kind of tell them, this is my background, this is what I do, then it always makes them think, oh wow, I'm actually interested to learn more about these competitions, because there must be some other people like you. There must be more people that actually have like quite a lot of interesting things about them that it's not just you look pretty, or you look great in a suit.
Because Drew and I were actually discussing prior to this one about your journey towards Mr. World. Like, Drew, would you like to ask that question regarding his motivation?
In connection to that, you have an impressive academic background. You work for a top aerospace company. You're considered a genius. What made you decide to enter the world of pageants?
Mr. England, was it the first one, or you had like the Mr. Hertfordshire?
I think it was the local pageant.
Yeah, it was my local county pageant, Mr. Hertfordshire. And I'm still Mr. Hertfordshire because we haven't been able to have another heat because of the lockdown. So I'm still Mr. Hertfordshire. And then, so even way before that, my sister was in Miss World in 2013.
Yeah.
So Kirsty Heslewood. So she was Miss Hertfordshire 2013. And then she went to Miss England. She won that competition. And then she went into 2013 Miss World and became very good friends with Megan Young, who won. Kirsty came in, I think, 6th position. She was in top 10. And by points, she was in 6th. But she was really the one who actually made me want to enter, because I think if I if my sister hadn't have been in Miss England and Miss World, I wouldn't have known what it was like. So I don't think I'd have entered if my sister hadn't already done it.
Did she do it secretly, like, wrote the application form behind your back, or like, like all this funny story about, how sisters sometimes or brothers would do that?
Or how did she convince you?
I'd already seen her do it, and I think I'd kind of helped out with a lot of the charity fundraising she was doing.
Okay.
So I guess I'd had like 6 years of that pageantry in our family for me to know what it was like. So I kind of learned a lot about what it was like before I even considered entering it. So there was a point where it was kind of like, are you going to do this or not? And it was March 2017, and my sister and mum are saying, why don't you go for Mr. Hertfordshire? Just see where it takes you, And it was a very pivotal moment, obviously, but it was a moment where I said yes. I just said yes to it. I didn't really know what I was going in for, because I knew that obviously my sister had been in it. So I knew as an outsider, but I didn't know as a contestant. And then there's the whole journey after that, which is a roller coaster, because it was tough getting from there to here, believe me.
Yeah, because after you won the county title, you represented your county to Mr. England, and you ended up as first runner-up in that competition, right?
Yes.
And the eventual winner, who was also another very interesting personality, right? Because he was supposed to join the Paralympics here in Tokyo if it did happen this year, but it's postponed.
Yeah.
So the original winner of the Mr. England did not join Mr. World because he was going to prepare for the Paralympics. It's going to be held here in Tokyo. And you are the one who actually took his place and represented England in Mr. World, and you became Mr. World.
Yeah. Crazy. So, yeah, you could not write that. So March 2017, I became Mr. Hertfordshire. July the same year, I'm then first runner-up, deputy Mr. England, and I'm being told on the stage, and I'm very good friends with Jack. I speak to Jack, the other Jack. I speak to him all the time. Very good friends, very awesome person. And I'm being told on the stage, if for any reason, Mr. England cannot represent England in Mr. World, the first runner-up will take his place. And you're thinking, that's a very, very unlikely, situation to be in. And then I was called. I'd actually just started a new job. And it was the Friday before the Monday that I was due to start this new job. That was it was a step up. It was, I worked 3 months notice of my previous job so that I could start this new job. And I'm thinking, I'm really going to go for this. That's where my head was. And then I get the call the Friday before the Monday saying, Jack is, he's going for the Tokyo Olympics. So he can't do it. He can't make the dates work. This is this is where you step up basically to do it. And I'm thinking, that's amazing, but I have to then, I have to basically resign before I've even started this new job that I was doing. So anyway, that ensued for the next 3 weeks, and the team that I actually ended up working with in this job, very supportive, and it was quite funny because it was a very brief kind of like, hello, good luck. I guess the good thing from it was that I had 30 more fans, I suppose, than I did before that.
Mm-hmm.
But before you competed in Mr. World, you competed in another international pageant, Manhunt International. So did you think that competing in another pageant gave you an advantage in Mr. World?
I think that what it gave me is more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would say that it did give me an advantage in that sense because it gave me that confidence. I mean, I was confident before, but when I got onto the Mr. World stage, I was not nervous. I was just 100% enjoying it. So I think it did, yeah. It just made me realize, take in the moment and appreciate the moment, you know.
And how would you
Which pageant was that, girl? If which pageant was that?
Manhunt International.
Okay, Manhunt. Sorry, where was it held?
In Australia, I think, right?
Oh,
yeah, Gold Coast.
Okay.
So how would you differentiate competing in a sort of modeling pageant and Mr. World?
Oh, so it's completely different because you know, you might be wearing a sash and dressed smart and being on a stage, but the criteria is so different because it's very, very modeling focused, right? Whereas Mr. World, you know, you're being judged as soon as you enter, from the national competition, you know, until the very final night, you know. So it's, who is this person? What's their personality like? You know, how do they interact with their fans and the audience? And, you know, what's their cause? What are they doing in their own countries? And then there's also the sports and the talent round and the multimedia round. And then the sponsored, you know, the clothing sponsors rounds, or, you know, you can't fake over 3 weeks your personality. So they'll find out who you are over that period. And they really look for that overall personality. You know, I think there is an element of that sort of modeling aspect because, you know, I say this to on my videos and to folks all the time, that if you are trying to be the best person you are and you're looking after your body, you're likely to look good if you do that. So it means that you might be, you know, you get guys that are in the best shape you could ever imagine. You know, they're just 3% body fat. They've got a ridiculous stamina. You know, some of them are professional or ex-professional swimmers and runners and martial artists. And, you know, there is an element of it because you're going to look good if you're trying to be the best person you possibly can be, usually. But I preferred the criteria being about well-roundedness than, you know, just kind of looking good.
You're quite a sporty guy, are you? Like, do you play any sport or?
I think the only sport I play a lot of sport, and I've done a lot. Yeah, I play pretty much everything. I've done team sports. I used to play rugby at school. I do Ironman triathlons. They're ultra distance events, like running, cycling, swimming. I've done martial arts. I competed in martial arts when I was a teenager, a kid.
Which one was that?
A karate.
Karate. Okay. Yeah.
And swimming. I was one of those kids that always had a sports class on the weekends before and after school. I'd be in a rugby match or swimming. Yeah, very, very sporty.
So growing up, would you recommend, if you have your own kids in the future, would you recommend, you know, like sending your kids into those kinds of sports clubs? And
yeah.
Did your parents convince you to join in those things, or were you the one who actually, hey dad, or hey mom, I want to do this sports? Like,
well, they kind of, yeah, they did. I think my mum and my dad both were athletes when they were younger.
Oh,
so
right.
So my mum used to train for England. My dad used to be also an athlete, but he didn't quite get that far. And they would always push us, my two sisters. So myself and my sister Kirsty and my elder sister Karina, we would always be in the teams competing for, like, you know, netball or hockey or rugby. And I guess my mum would come with me on every competition I had when I was a kid. Swimming, would be driving up and down the country. Karate, she'd be there when I was, you know, winning the medals and the things and taking me everywhere. Yeah, I would definitely, I don't think I'll push my kids to do that, but I would definitely allow them to try it.
I'm sure those. I'm sure being a sporty person came in handy during Mr. World because you had the
Yeah.
sports challenges and the extreme challenge.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because the sports round was multi-sport, so there was basketball, swimming, running. I'd done all of it before, and I was quite competent in everything that they tested us. And then the extreme sports round was an SAS, Special Forces Police training course. So I came in, I was so ready. I was just like, bring it, you know?
Yeah, because Drew, right? Like it's very rare, for example, in the Philippines, to have someone who is
Well-rounded.
sporty, it was as well-rounded as him. You know, what was his IQ again? 181.
181.
Oh, man, the last time I checked, my IQ was just 145. It's like, ooh, 181 here.
That's high. That's high.
Oh gosh, like yeah. Went to a school for the gifted when I was in elementary, and it's just like, you know, I would rather be in a normal school.
Normal school, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely came in handy.
Yes, Jack.
It definitely came in handy. Sure. Yeah.
And probably when he was doing all of those things, he was just also analyzing things like how what should I do, you know, to balance everything, you know.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Always. Saving energy.
Yeah. Speaking of strategy,
yeah.
Which part of the competition was your favorite?
It's my favorite. You know what? It was probably the sports, you know, because I just had that competitiveness, and I think that I was very, very competitive. I think I used that as my advantage. You know, I might look kind of, more friendly and, like I'm not going to be super competitive, but then when I'm in the race, I'm just like, gun it, just the dark horse.
Yeah, but actually you placed in talent competition. I was able to watch that finals. You did the drops. He was good at it, Stephen.
Yeah, you see, like, he's really well-rounded. He can do sports, he can play an instrument, he can do math. I mean, like, I think the title of the world's most desirable man is just perfect for him.
Yeah.
You're too kind.
No, because that's the theme of Mr. World. Like, Miss World has beauty with a purpose, but Mr. World has the world's most desirable man. Like, you really have to be like well-rounded and all, like, you have this thing. Do you think that women will be intimidated because of, there seems to be so perfect, or do you still have some insecurities in you?
Yeah.
I have insecurities.
Oh.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think that I feel like I'm open. I feel like I can sort of lay down, this is the real me. I do feel that there are some things that I really I need to learn to let go of. I think everyone has insecurities. But that's a good question. I mean, if they're going to be intimidated, look, I think before I competed, I would have been very intimidated because I didn't have the confidence. It's taken me a few years to build up the confidence where I feel like you can throw anything at me. But I didn't always feel like that. I used to be so nervous speaking in public. I remember once I was in a lecture theatre, and there was a whole lecture theatre. I think it was my first lecture at university, and I thought they would ask me to stand at the front to do something, just like almost like a register name calling or something, or giving out something. I can't even remember because I was that nervous, and my heart was in my mouth, and I thought I was going to have a panic attack, and I hadn't done anything. I was just sat in a room, and I was that nervous about speaking in public. And now I feel like I like it. It energizes me to speak in public. I feel like I like to deliver. I like to kind of deliver whatever I need to say. I actually enjoy it, but I think anyone would be intimidated. And I think if you are intimidated before you start to even consider entering it, then that's a good reason to enter. So you can come out, learn, be confident. A lot of people have confidence issues, I find. So
Public speaking, yeah, it takes a lot of brevity and experiences as well before you could actually like really stand in front of a crowd and not be afraid of forgetting your lines or whatnot.
yeah, because you have to be confident first of all, but then you also have to be good at whatever you're doing. If you're presenting something,
That's
you need
true,
to
yeah.
be good at it too. So I think most people who have never, there are some people who can naturally speak in public. I just wasn't one of those people. But even the you're saying being well-rounded, playing drums, being sporty, that is the result of years of grit. That is purely nurture. I mean, I suppose there is an element of nature. You have to be born with a lot of curiosity to actually go and learn, physics to that sort of level, and still enjoy doing it. It was really difficult. And like, I would swim about 5 miles before breakfast on a Saturday when I was 9 years old, 10 years old. So it's not as if I could just, it's not as if I was just born and then grew up and then entered a competition and then now I'm an owner of this. It's grit and hard work, but it's all worth it,
Yeah, you're young. Like,
Now,
how old are you now, by the way? I'm sorry, Drew. How old are you now? Did you already turn 28 or you're still 27?
Yes, 28. Yeah.
Which month did you turn 28?
June. So I'll be.
You're turning 28. You'll be 29 this year, next month.
Yeah.
Same as you, Drew.
No, I'm older.
You're older? Oh,
Yeah,
maybe same as Kenji, one of our friends.
Yeah.
You were born in 1991.
91.
Yeah.
The best year.
Probably the best year. The Gulf War just ended back then.
So now I want to talk about your experience in the Philippines. So it's the first time that Mr. World was held outside the UK. And how was it competing in the Philippines, where pageant contestants are regarded as royalties and celebrities?
It's great, brilliant. I loved it. As soon as I was greeted at the airport, there was lots of people taking photos, and I'm just landed. I hadn't even won at that point. I'm just I'm Mr. England at that point, and the 3 weeks was incredible. I really wanted to stay past the for a few extra weeks after the competition, but guess where the first thing I had to do was in England. So the first order of business was, we've got this, we need to go and do this press interview back in London. I'm thinking, of all the places, I wanted to go and see Palawan, and my parents flew out to Cebu. And then they flew into Manila a couple of days before the competition and watched in the audience. So they had a really nice holiday while I was competing. I want to see more of the Philippines, though. I really want to see more of Philippines.
And one of the most memorable events during the Mr. World in Manila was your visit in Pinoy Foundation. So I was one of the selected media who were able to cover, and I saw how tender the moment was. So can you take us back to that moment?
Yeah, I broke down. So there was another contestant, Mr. Canada. So it was already a very moving thing, right? Because you can't not go there and be very, very moved by, what you see there. And the kids, they have like a normal life. They have the opportunity to have a much more normal life now. And it's a very, very nice, positive experience. The Mr. Canada was upset, and he was standing there. I saw him just break down, And it just made me, I remember I was keeping it together because that's just how I kind of usually am. I don't express my emotions that way. I'm just very much like, wow, I see the positives, but he just made me break down, and he was on the floor, kind of squatting down, and it made me do the same. And then for the rest of the day, we just had, constant kind of like teary, puffy eyes from seeing all the kids, and it was a very, very moving experience. Very, very moving. I really want to go back. If I was to go back into Manila, I would head over to, it's in Alabang, right?
Yeah, in Manila.
Yeah, I would head over to Alabang and go visit Father Rocky again, because it was incredible. Really incredible.
But do you have that challenge in Mr. World in the same way that Mr. World has the beauty with a purpose? But is it also a requirement for Mr. World delegates to have your own charity work, or it depends on you?
It is, yeah. And what we are required to do is pick a cause. We need to be working on a cause that is close to home. Mm-hmm. So, for example, even if, Taloy really, really hit me, if I was to say, let's try and actually help more orphans over in the Philippines, I don't live there. So I've chosen a cause that I can actually be hands-on with and actually help back here in England. And so my cause was to raise money for sick kids and to promote science and engineering to mostly youngsters, but just to everybody in general, really. So to try and, as I say, like make science fun. But that is something that we can actually do in England. I wouldn't, you wouldn't want to pick a cause that was in another country, because you just can't have a big enough impact unless you're actually physically there all the time.
I heard that it is actually a policy by the Miss World organization to choose a charity work in your country, because like, for example, here in Japan, you can just like join the Miss World or Mr. World Japan competition, but your charity somewhere in the Philippines or Thailand, you have to look for a cause within the country that you're representing.
Exactly. Yeah, that is a policy, I believe. Yeah.
And it wouldn't be hard for you, because as you said a while ago, you were already involved in your sister's charity work prior to that. So you're just probably trying to add on into that aspect.
Yeah. I mean, the charity that my sister was raising money for and that I was raising money for is Variety Children's Charity. And Julia, you guys already know. I'm telling you guys, and you're like, yeah, we've done our homework. She used to run Variety, right? In, I think, 2009, she was the CEO of Variety.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Good knowledge, Stephen.
You really have to research on these things, because I thought it was gonna be me here, before Drew suddenly just sent me a message. Hey, actually, I have an internet connection. Like, oh, come on, just come. But I'm pretty sure that Drew really has a lot more to ask him, a lot more to share, because he was there in Manila when everything was happening. I'm just more like an armchair observer, and just a few hours ago I was watching your pageant on YouTube. It's like, okay, this is what happened. Okay, like, let me remember what was the Q&A and what was the question asked on you on the final night. And it was probably a very difficult decision for the judges to choose who was the winner, because almost everyone in the top 5 actually answered really, really well.
Yeah.
Like Mr. South Africa was like, oh, come on, he's gonna be a president of South Africa, probably the way he spoke,
Yeah.
And
very top 5.
How did you feel already, like, when they were about to announce the winner, when the top 5 was there, Julia was announcing the second runner-up and the first runner-up and the winner, like, were you already like some sort of expecting, like, it could be me, or?
I think that in my head, what I was thinking was that I believed that I deserved to win it, but I also just placed all the trust that I had in the judges to pick who they wanted as their next Mr. World. So I was already happy with whatever the result was because I just trusted the judges. I just knew that, I mean, I've followed the competition for quite a lot of years. So I've seen a lot of winners, right, in Miss World, Mr. World.
Yeah.
So I know that they always pick the right winner. So I was just thinking, look, I'm just happy with who you pick because you'll pick the right person. That was my honest opinion. You know, that was how I was thinking. And so when I was in the top 5, I looked at the other 4 guys and I just thought, you know, and I got to know them over that period of time, right? And I just thought, this is such a great top 5. Any one of us who wins, you know, in any year, any of those top 5 could be great Mr. World winners, you know?
Yeah, divide the year, you know. I'll do 2019, you do
Yeah.
2020, 2021. But it was an amazing top 5, really smart, accomplished, and young man. Like I was wondering, like, what was I doing when I was 21 or 22 or 24? Like you guys were really amazing.
Yeah, and if I may add, I've been following Mr. World since 2010, and last year was one of the most competitive batches ever.
Probably the biggest with 72 delegates, you know?
And speaking of that, who did you think, Jack, was your closest rival for the title?
I think I guessed the order of who was first and second runner-up, right? You know, but yeah, I think Mr. South Africa, Fez, and you know Brian Falgier, Mr. Mexico, are fantastic. Yeah, but I also took the mentality that I was in competition with myself really, and I wasn't really trying to concentrate on what they were doing. I was just interested in who they were as individuals and what life was like back in South Africa and Mexico. I've not been to those 2 countries before, so that was really what I was focused on doing. You know, I was the day in, day out sort of mentality wasn't, you know, I've got to beat, you know, these competitors, these rivals, because there are 71 other gentlemen who are exceptional in their own right too. So I just enjoyed it. I think I just focused on making sure I enjoyed it. And I know that if I certainly when I am judging for the next Miss Worlds or the next Mr. Worlds on the panel, if I'm going to be invited to be on the panel, I am going to pick someone who looks like they're enjoying that experience. If they're on the stage and they're hating it, they're not going to like being Mr. World. So I just became what I envisioned the winner to be. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes sense. It does.
And what was going through your head when Julia announced England?
Julia was so all smiles already, you know, like
yeah. She really was. Yeah, she was just Mr. World.
You know,
Bless her. I love Julia so much. She's so cute. It hurts. I love her so much. I went quite lightheaded. I remember. I went quite lightheaded, and then I was feeling dizzy already, and then I got lifted up. So I remember looking at the ceiling with people shouting in my ears. It was the other contestants, and then I remember kind of thinking, like, is this real? Like, am I dreaming? Is this actually happening? I must have done that probably a dozen times, and then I saw my parents come to the stage, and then I was all the contestants were trying to take pictures, and they were jumping and hugging me and things. Oh wow! I can't explain it. When I'm asked this question, I can never articulate. I can never say actually how it feels, but it was the best thing.
And I'm curious, what was the first thing your parents told you when you saw them?
I don't think I remember what they said actually. I think it was just my mum in tears. I think it was just the sound of my mum crying, I think. Yeah. And my dad, I don't think they actually said anything to me. I think they just were so, they were just speechless.
I wish they had that clip, right, of the reaction of the parents, after their after their son won Mr. World. That would be like a really good YouTube moment, right?
Yeah, I bet there is.
It should be like maybe like an Instagram somewhere. I should research on that one.
Yeah,
it's quite cute. It's quite cute to see the reaction of the parents,
Yeah, because obviously they'd flown out to go and watch me.
Yes.
And my
that's how proud they are.
Yeah, it was big news for the family because we Miss World is a very big subject in our family because my sister was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching her. I was at my sister's house and I was watching her live. And then, fast forward and I'm actually in it in the Philippines and then winning it. So it was, my sister was at home with my grandma and they were going crazy. My family all recorded themselves. They recorded their reactions and then they sent it to me. And it was just crazy. It's crazy. Really crazy.
They should give that to Steve Douglas. Hey, could you show this in the next edition of Mr. World? The reaction of my family when I won.
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
They might show that before the beginning of the competition in 2021. Is it 2021? The next one?
I think it's 2021.
Show like, oh, Mr. World is Mr. England, and then show the reaction of your family back home when they were shouting.
That'd be a great idea.
Save that video. You might be able to use that one.
Yeah, I have albums with all the pictures in it. And there's lots obviously from Missosology as well, the photos from you guys, which all saved in albums to show my kids at some point if I have children later down the line.
Grandkids, and my granddad was Mr. World.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic happened.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
Speaking of the pandemic, actually, you could probably use your title right now, especially with the situation going on around the world. So with the title, do you think that Mr. World, as Mr. World, you could actually reach out more to those people who felt like they have lost hope already because they have lost their jobs? They in Brazil, for example, right now a lot of people are dying, and I'm pretty sure you're close with Mr. Brazil as well. You could actually communicate with him, and what have you heard so far from your like what you said a while ago in the YouTube thing that you're doing? What so far, if you could give us a summary of the things that you have gathered so far, and as a Mr. World, what could you do to inspire and reach out to them?
Yeah, I mean, for every single person I've spoken to, so I've spoken to the contestants, I've spoken to friends who live in these other countries, a friend in Bangalore, friends in the Philippines, the situation is different between each country. How we can react to it is pretty much the same, really. It's just, we need to only really listen to trusted sources of information. And I know that, with news channels, I guess I've tried to be an extension of, I've tried to be like a news outlet in some way, just purely to try to take what I've learned from speaking with different folks, in different countries, and try and say, this is actually some insight of what's happening over here and over here. In England, it's been hit really tough. And I think as time has progressed, it's put into perspective just how hard England has actually been hit. I know that in India, I was concerned because the reports that I had seen were low, but I felt as if I felt as if it was mistakenly reportedly low, if that makes sense. I was expecting it to be a little bit higher, so I think that they went into lockdown earlier than we did over in England, for example, considering how the stage that actually got for us to then decide to self-isolate. But what I've been trying to do is try to be a mix of an objective like a
source
news
of
outlet,
information.
a source of trustworthy information, or someone who can actually direct you to a trustworthy information, and trying to shine my perspective on how I've been dealing with it back home, because I've been at home in lockdown. We need to be careful when we go and get groceries or things like that, but I find that really the main message is to the folks who lockdown isn't the worst thing on their plate. They would wish that they had a shelter that they could actually go and self-isolate in. Worrying about when the next meal is going to come, and whether you're going to have a home to actually sleep in, a bed to sleep in, a home to actually to live in. That's a much bigger message than we need to stay indoors. And I think something just to kind of self-reflect, I've actually realized that there's much more on my doorstep that I need than I originally thought. So I thought, I like doing this thing, I like traveling over there and going over there, spending money on this particular thing that I'm interested in and doing this. And then I realized that as soon as I've stopped, I do home workouts, I do home yoga, I do eat healthily and things like that. I don't go and buy a healthy shake and go to the gym, spend lots of money on that, and all this kind of stuff. And I'm actually better off with it, if that makes sense. So I think that the messages, to the folks who have, a home and they have food, is to try to listen only to trustworthy sources, because if you just listen to news, it's going to affect your mental health. Treat it as a time where, time is the most valuable currency in the universe. So make the most of it. You don't have to treat it like a rat race, and you don't have to be ultra productive. But it helps to make the most of the time. If you wake up and you really don't know what to do, you could learn something new. You could spend an hour trying to learn, some other language, or learn calculus if you're Steve.
Review my calculus. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Or if you're Drew, you could do more research on pageants. Not that I don't think you can fit in any more information, because you pretty much know more about me than I do about my own journey, which is great. I love it.
Drew could actually teach me how to do graphic design, because his graphic designs are really good.
I mean, you can see from the virtual background, he's nailed it.
I know.
This is real. This is actually a real.
Mine is real as well. That's my kitchen over there.
Oh, I thought that was a picture that you took off Google.
No, it's kitchen.
Anyway, I go back to some more tough questions for you.
Okay.
Because we all know that male pageants are not as popular as female pageants. And now the landscape of male pageants is slowly changing because of the victories of guys who are considered as more than just bodies. There are now more men joining pageants with professional backgrounds, like you as a rocket scientist. So what's your take on this? That you're pioneering a different age for male pageants.
Yeah, I really, really want to try and push. I want to try to push that agenda as much as I possibly can. So, I think that it will be as well liked, or as popular as the female competitions, because there isn't really, when you go under the skin of it, there isn't really any reason why it shouldn't be. It might be because it's less frequent as well. So I think that in the future, if it was to be run every year, it wouldn't be a bad thing at all. I think there are more female pageants in general, which maybe dilutes it slightly. So there are more female pageants you can follow. I know that with the male pageants, you've got the big five, right? With the female pageants, there are so many. I think there must be a dozen in England, with obviously Miss England and Miss World, license being the biggest over here. But I really want to push that agenda and break those stereotypes, because I think people do. If you've ever been in a pageant, as soon as you mention it to somebody, they're going to, if they've not seen it, they're going to make a judgment and make a stereotype even. But I mean, I use that to my advantage because, they might think, oh, you just care about your appearance. You're just kind of pretty face. And so I want to actually say, well, no, like that's something that I take advantage of because I can be a dark horse. I can have that element of surprise to say, no, I'm actually, I can actually design something that can go into space and land on Mars. Not by myself, but I would work in a team because it takes thousands of people to do that, right? But I really want to push that as much as I possibly can. I think it's going that way, but if anybody is going to be the person who is going to make that happen, I really would love to do that, but it's not easy.
Yeah, it's really not easy to change the perception overnight, but it is going to start because we have a rocket scientist who is Mr. World 2019, and people will remember that. People will really think about, hey, they did not give the title to a runway model. They did not give the title to a sports guy or what. Like, here's a well-rounded guy.
Yeah, I mean, there's nothing wrong with giving the title to someone who is worthy with true. Those titles, but I think it's just a good example of, you shouldn't stereotype someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if I may add, your first runner-up is a medical doctor.
Yeah, Mr. South Africa is a medical doctor.
So I think Mr. World 2019 as a batch is a statement to the pageant league. You can be whatever you want.
The national...
You can be whoever you are and still win a pageant.
Yeah. I think we should also give the credit to the national directors who really took it seriously, because they did not just send, hey, you cute guy, go to the Philippines. It's like, hey, like they really took it seriously and brought the big guns, and that's why, like, I think it's also one of the reasons why you really stood out. Because you have that really, aside from the fact that you have a very interesting and impressive resume, you actually like also added more spice by the fact that you are really smart, and in the Philippines, smart people are worshipped. It's just the culture itself, schools always give awards and honors to people who are smart. So
I wish that was the way. I wish that was the case everywhere, because there is. I mean, it's not such a case in the UK really anymore. But if you were someone who was smart, then you would be stereotyped again. So you'd be stereotyped as a nerd or someone.
That's true. Yeah, that's it. That's like what we see on Netflix. I don't know, like dramas and stuff like that. If you are the smart guy or girl, you are the one who is like subject of bullying and things like that. But it's totally different in the Philippines. The smart ones always get the best piece of the pie, and You're admired and respected in schools. Maybe it's slowly changing right now, but you'll be an inspiration to kids to remain smart, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, not just take up something that's easy, actually do something difficult and invest in your own education. But it's really hard to actually go and study a subject like that and pursue it.
It's really sad, because a lot of kids nowadays, they would rather be stupid, and because that's what they think could land them a instant popularity somewhere. Like books and reading books and prioritizing your education is not anymore the key, like for many kids and youngsters. So like even in pageantry, for example, in this case, in the Mr. World, you are setting a really good example to young kids out there, to set a very high standard and goal to your life. Win a competition. It could be Mr. World, it could be a sports event, it could be Quiz Bee or whatnot.
Yeah, and maybe it's an angle in itself to represent someone who is, I really like physics. I could really go into it in detail and talk about it for a lot of time, right? I nerd out to it a lot, but I don't want to. I guess it's an opportunity for me to show that you can be like that, but you don't have to just fit a stereotype. You don't need to be this. As you were saying in the American dramas, they're maybe in a hoodie with a laptop, and they're kind of sat like this, and when anyone tries to talk to them, they kind of like bite or do something. I'm as nerdy as you can get, but I'm not a stereotype. If that makes sense. I like talking to people. I like to learn about them, and I can look at someone in the eye when I talk to them. I'm not a stereotype of that. So I think I'm an anti-stereotype. I'm just trying to show who I am, so you can say, oh, you can be smart, and you can still kind of hopefully be cool. I don't think people that say they're cool are cool, but it might just be it's a good thing that they're kids would think, oh, I can actually still be smart, and I can still kind of like be into fashion and lifestyle and health if I actually want to, and be into sport.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, it's not like we are downplaying those who are struggling when it comes to academics. Everyone has his own gift, basically. You don't need to be. Not everyone has to be smart. Not everyone has to be. But like to actually deny yourself of the opportunity to be good in academics or in school just because the society is trying to portray being smart as something negative, like what we see sometimes on media or on dramas. So just try to be the best version of yourself, no matter which arena you are excelling.
Definitely.
Drew, do you have some more difficult questions for Jack here?
Yeah. Here's another question. What advice could you give young boys who are watching this and who want to join pageants but are hesitant?
Oh, you must absolutely do it, even if you feel like you have no shot in winning it, because a lot of people think that when they enter it. Even if you have no chance, just do it, just do it for the fun of it. Just try it and see if you like it. Just do it. I'm going to rip off the Nike.
Just do it. Exactly. Same with sports, just do it. You'll never know.
Sponsored by Nike.
Check here.
And a little bit related to that, you've been into pageantry since your sister won. So what do you think was the biggest lesson that you've learned throughout your journey?
The biggest lesson? I think the biggest lesson is really, I suppose, to try to do whatever it takes to follow your heart. I know that's really cliche, but following your heart actually really will test your courage, because it's not the easiest option. If you think, take, for example, before I said I would go and do Mr. World, right, the competition had been put back. So I said, yes, I'll go and do it. I'm going to say yes to it. We'll try it. We're just going to go and do it. Right. So I say yes to it. The competition gets put back. So now I've resigned from my job. So I've resigned from my job. The competition gets put back. I'm thinking, I don't know how I'm going to actually survive. How am I going to live between now and then? I need to kind of like find some work, and I need to find sponsors for the competition. I need to sign up to a gym. I need to do all this preparatory work. I need to try and find a national costume. I need to send so many things that the organization required in order to actually enter. And it required a really strong level of focus to keep going in the right direction. And, my heart was saying, go for it, you must go for it. But really, I had all of these challenges that were happening that was just making it sound less and less likely that I was even going to end up in the Philippines. So I really had to just try and keep focused. And don't get me wrong, there were some times I was really tested for this. And I was thinking, like, the chance of winning is very, very small. There are thousands of people that try and enter this competition, and there's only one person that can win this. If I don't win it, I've gone away with yes, like a great experience and things like that, but it's really, I'm putting a lot of risk into this. But I think that if you put your heart into it, it's always going to be a special thing. If you put your heart into anything, it's always going to make it special. So even if it's really, really difficult, you just have to try to follow and have faith in that direction that your heart is telling you to go to. Because it will never be the easiest option. It will always seem the most difficult, awkward option. So in a roundabout way, yeah, follow your heart, just do it. I'm being the most cliche.
The first step is always the most difficult one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Sometimes it's just saying, yeah, I'm going to go do it, or yes, or yeah.
Yeah. And it's probably too early to ask, but what are your plans after your reign as Mr. World?
My plans after my reign as Mr. World, I really want to, I'm going to be traveling to various different places. We don't know yet because we don't know anything yet because of the lockdown. So after I'm Mr. World, I want to still see more of the world, I want to see, I'm going to come back to the Philippines and do Philippines properly. We're going to do it properly.
Drop by in Japan if you have a chance,
And Japan. I do want to go to Tokyo, so we could, we'll go get some sushi.
You've never been here yet. You've never been to Japan.
I haven't been to Japan yet, no.
It's
on the bucket list.
You would love Japan.
Yeah.
Drew has been here like 2 times or 3 times.
I love Japan. Times already.
Yeah, it's amazing. I can't wait to go. But I think, lots of traveling, I think. I also have, there is a startup company that I'm trying to launch. And what that is I'm telling you now so that in the future we can go back and say, do you remember when you interviewed Jack when he was Mr. World, and now he's this, he's Mr.
CEO of the startup company.
Now
he brought people to Mars.
Without a return ticket, how are we going to get it back? And I'll be there missing all of the earthly food. No, I'm just kidding. It's actually reimagining how people use technology. So it's all hidden technology using augmented reality and artificial intelligence. And you'll be able to kind of measure anything that happens in the world in real time, but in a very safe way. You're not using data and all this kind of stuff. So I'm really pushing that as much as I possibly can, because try asking investors to invest in a company during lockdown, right? So I'll probably be focusing on on that as well in full capacity when I give over my title. But we don't know yet when the next Mr. World is going to be, so we're just gonna.
Yeah, I'm actually curious with your name on Instagram, Mr. World 2019, 2020. One, like there's already, it's like you have already set the time frame of your reign.
I remember during last year's pageant, Dave, one of the PRs of Mr. World, he asked us, "Do you think we should hold Mr. World every year?" And we said, "If you could find a sponsor, why not?"
Bench was a good sponsor, right?
Yeah, because it's a really, really good pageant.
Yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it in the future. It's just been set up that way for the last since it began. So
yeah, because I think 2019 was one of the most successful ones.
Yeah.
They held it in the right country. They held it in the right country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Araneta Coliseum, man, that's big.
The Thriller in Manila. Friends of mine back here who are into boxing were very impressed.
Yeah, you were. I don't think we were born when Thriller in Manila was held in Araneta Coliseum.
Yeah, what year was it?
It was Marcus time, so it was like 1970 something.
I think it's in the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In Manila.
And in the Philippines, if your event was held in Araneta Coliseum, you're a big star.
You're big. It's big. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah. Before we go to the last question, there was a question on Instagram and that asked you if you have any plans of going to Indonesia. Probably one of your Indonesian fans will ask you.
Indonesia, yes, I love Indonesia. So I can speak some basic Bahasa. I learned some basic Bahasa a few years back when I went to Bali, and then I visited Jakarta, and I really fell in love with the culture. In fact, one of the things I want to do after Mr. World, if we don't go with the organization, is to see more of the Polynesia. So go and see, like Thailand and Philippines and Bali and Indonesia. I've always had a fascination with the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur too. So I want to go visit Malaysia, and it's also my favorite cuisine as well, the Indonesian food, right? So
like spicy then.
Yes, yeah. So the answer to that is I will. Yes, I have every intention to come to Indonesia.
And usually I shoot the final question. But really, out of curiosity, I just want to know who chose the music "Rule Britannia" in your presentation national costume.
It was me.
It was you.
Yeah.
You chose it. Are you a patriot?
Yeah.
Are you a patriot yourself? You're a patriotic person, or like?
I brush my teeth to it every day. I'm just. I'm not very patriotic.
Yeah.
There's two. Yeah, not very. These just sit here all the time. It's just
Jack with a Union Jack, all right?
The Union Jack. Yeah, the Union Jack.
Yeah, I just said Jack with the Union Jacks.
Yeah, no, I chose that.
So you guys chose the music for your national costume presentation. I was like, okay, what was the music that you used? And then Rule Britannia.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, Rule Britannia, and the national costume walk as well was very minimalist. I just kept it. Quite basic.
Really
There's not, you can't really dance to Rule Britannia. I think you would struggle to look good and dance to Rule Britannia unless you did some kind of trap version or like some kind of dance mix of it or something,
Yeah, Mr. Canada had to do something with old Canada.
Yeah, the States and Canada, right? It's their classical music is very modern, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's quite interesting,
That that opening number was well received by the audience.
It was
I was
really
there.
fun. It's
I was
fun. Like,
there.
it's like traveling to 72 countries in just one sitting, It was very interesting.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
we were talking, me and some of the media people there were talking, how are they going to do something like the Dances of the World in Miss World into Mr. World? And then when the opening number was shown, it's like, we were all awestruck. Like, it was really good.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was really good. It was really good.
It was so fun. It was so
Yeah.
so fun. And we were in 4 groups, because in Miss World and Mr. World you get put into 4 groups.
Yeah.
I was in green team, which is the best team. In fact, the previous, or the Tony Ann Singh and the rest of the top 5 at Miss World were all green team.
Oh,
So I'm not sure if I gave them some of the green team energy. Maybe I did. Who knows? But we were competing in the dancing. So we were saying, we need to have the most energy. We need to be the most entertaining and give it, everything. And we had so much fun in rehearsals. We would all be dancing to each other as they were coming out. We would all be copying, each contestant as they were coming out dancing. And I remember Megan Young coming for this was the day before, I think. And she was coming to check out, just to see how, the contestants were doing on their rehearsal, probably just expecting it to be, the same old thing where, you just got guys on the stage, just waiting, walking up. We were going crazy in the Coliseum. The music was pumping, and we were all like, we're like sweating because we're just dancing and like to all this music. It was brilliant. In the last video I actually posted on Instagram, myself and Mr. Brazil are talking about the Mr. Ghana music. And there was a song, and it starts like this. It goes boop, 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 boop. And whenever it was played, we used to start dancing to it. And I think he was probably like 20 contestants in, but it was just so fun. And then whenever I came out, all the other guys would be, doing this and pretending, copying and things. Oh, I bet Megan was just thinking like, what?
Now,
Great.
Drew, shoot the final question, the most important question of all.
So I always ask this each time. So aside from having the honor of being England's first Mr. World, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered as the complete opposite of a stereotype to a winner. So someone who is, a rocket scientist, not this stereotype that people might expect. Those who don't really know much about the competition, and there are people out there who don't, and they make assumptions. So I want to be known as the person who is opposite of a stereotype, and who is kind of an ally for all those people that think they couldn't do something like this, and how amazing it is, and how lovely it is, and how much love you spread all over the world with Julia Morley. There's nothing like that. So I guess it's being someone who would encourage people from kind of any background to go and pursue it, because there isn't a particular formula. There's no set type of person you need to be.
Yeah, well said.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Jack. It has been really very inspiring to hear your wisdom, and hopefully, especially young guys out there, or even women, young girls out there, will be inspired to be the better version or the best version of themselves, and not to be typecast, and fight for their dreams. And the cliches, people would always say a lot of cliche, but actually they do make sense. It will come to, you will reach a point in your life when all the cliches that you have heard from your parents, from your friends, from role models or idols, they do make sense. Yeah. Speaking from someone who's turning 41 this year, so I'm 12 years older than you, actually.
Well, it's just a number, isn't it?
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Like one full circle. We're both from the year of the sheep, you know.
Well, I mean, it's very important that, yeah, I mean, I hope that I do inspire, you know, not just, you know, folks who aren't necessarily like me too, you know, young girls. The competition is, you know, it applies to both females and males pretty much equally split, you know. The qualities that the organization looks for in a Miss and Mr. World, very, very similar. There's one thing that we all have in common, us winners, is that we all have a big heart. And I suppose the other thing that we have in common is that we are all unique, if that makes sense. But it's been a pleasure to speak with you both. Thank you very much for having me on today.
No, the pleasure is ours. The pleasure is ours.
And we look forward to seeing more of you.
Yeah, hopefully with all this coronavirus is over, we'll be seeing more of you because you deserve a full reign and, you know, with no restrictions or whatsoever.
Yeah. Until then, I'm going to do what I can from my own home. Thanks, guys.
Continue to inspire through your Instagram and your YouTube channel.
Yeah, and now Facebook too. Now.
And Facebook, you know,
on Facebook.
Yeah,
thanks a lot, guys.
Some countries are on Facebook. Thank you very much, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.